spectacular speaker for you coming up. We did not have a keynote speaker last year, and I know so many of you are great motivators, but I had the pleasure of hearing someone at my San Mateo Rotary Club not too long ago, and I was blown away by this man. And I went home and told my husband about him, and I went to the office and we were planning this event, and I said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could get Mark Speckman to come and speak? And that day, his RSVP for this event came in. I mean, that is just an uncanny coincidence. So, yeah, any of you who have heard him, I mean, I don't want to oversell him. The man is, I think, a life changer. He is football coach for Menlo College, former head football coach for Willamette University, and it is my pleasure to introduce Mark Speckman.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here. A few years ago, I was honored to be inducted into the San Mateo County Hall of Fame, and it was a great night for me and my family, and I really appreciate it. I'm now the head football coach at Menlo College, and it's an honor to represent that university here tonight. And I just want to congratulate all the inductees for their honor tonight, and I'll try to be brief, and we'll get on with the show. I grew up in the Bay Area, lived on the Peninsula, went to Carmon High School, Ralston Junior High School, go Cots, go Scots, yeah, and the Fighting Scots. And I went to Menlo College and played 2 years of football there, and then transferred to Azusa Pacific University, and got into college coaching, and kind of moved around. And it's great to be back in the Bay Area, and it's kind of fun as I drive around. I show my wife all the places I played football and where I started my illustrious career as a Pop Warner star, and so it's great to be back, and I think this is a great event, and I feel very fortunate that I grew up on the Peninsula and was able to be part of the sporting community here. You know, a few years ago I gave a speech at a conference, and one of the other speakers was a guy named Major Charles Plum, and he was a Vietnam prisoner of war. And he had a very interesting story, and I think it pertains to tonight. And the story goes that he was having dinner with his wife, and a guy came up to him and said, "You're Major Plum, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, I am." He said, "You were a prisoner in Vietnam, weren't you?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I was." And he said, "How'd you know that?" And the guy said, "Well, I'm the guy that packed your parachute." And they started talking and visited a little bit, and Major Plum went home and started thinking about, wow, I'm glad he packed my parachute, did a good job, it saved me. And they started thinking about all the other people that were involved in that mission, the people that did the mechanics and the cooks, and all the other people that helped him as he went to battle. And so he wrote a book called Who Packs Your Parachute? And it really talks about all those people behind the scenes that help you. And I really thought that was something that was pertinent to tonight. It's about who packs your parachute. Because the people that helped pack my parachute when I was a young man were people that were way behind the scenes. Some were very famous, some you never heard of, but each one of them really had a part in helping me become who I was. You know, when I was 6 years old, I went to an Oakland Raiders game. They played 1 year at the Candlestick Park. And my dad didn't really like getting autographs, but he had no problem pushing me forward to get autographs. And, you know, my parents were part of the group that helped pack my parachute. You know, I was born without hands, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But they did a great job, and they made a few mistakes, and they did some great things. But I was a little kid with hooks, and my dad kind of pushed me to the front, and here I was, 6 years old, in the San Diego Chargers, had just beaten the Oakland Raiders. And all of a sudden, I felt this guy grab my shoulder, and it was Sid Gilman. I didn't know it was Sid Gilman. I found out later. And he grabbed me, and he said, "Hey, would you like an autograph?" And I said, "I sure would." And he got a football out of the back of the bus that had been used, had grass stains, it was cool. And he said, "Come on the bus." And I remember being 6 years old, walking on the bus, and these giant men were all taller than I was. They were sitting down, and they had some great players on that team. Ron Mix, Ernie Ladd, Lance Allworth. They all signed the football for me. Being a little white kid from Belmont, I'd never seen that many black people in my life, or that many large people in my life. And I was just starstruck. And we took the ball home, and my dad treated it like it was a holy grail. Just an icon. He went to work the next day, and my brother and I got home from school, and we went out in the street and started playing catch. Of course, we didn't always catch it. The ball kept getting scuffed. We wiped out about 7 Hall of Fame autographs. My dad came home and said, "What happened to football?" I said, "We were playing catch, Dad." And that was kind of a beating. But got me fired up about football. I remember the county fair. She was walking through here. I was a little kid. My mom let me go on the ride by myself. She said, "Be careful." I said, "I will." And I stood up and waved. And then I fell out of it. And everybody just kind of sat there stunned. And my mom climbed over the ropes and spanked me. And I had great memories of the fair walking through here. Got made me therapy. You know, I remember playing Pop Warner football, San Carlos Lions. What a big deal that was. Joe Renati, Frank Guzzo were my coaches. And I remember to this day, and they weren't big time, and I don't know if they ever had great careers as college football coaches or high school football coaches. I think one was an electrician, one was a plumber, but they sure taught me how to love football. And boy, when I got that red blazer with the San Carlos Lions patch on the back, man, I thought I was the coolest guy at Ralston Junior High. I remember going to Carmine High School and learned something. If you read the inductees, there's a lot of our coaches are inducted in this Hall of Fame. We had some tremendous football coaches, track coaches, and guys that looked at me and said, "Hey, you can't do this." They told me what I could do. They gave me a chance to play and go out and participate. They helped me pack my parachute. I appreciate all those guys. You know, I wasn't the brightest kid at Carmine, and I really thought I was going to Stanford, because in my pea brain, you went to the closest elementary school and you went to the closest junior high. So you had to go to the closest high school and then the closest college. So by my junior year, I said, "Hey, we're playing at Stanford. We're going to really, kick those guys' rears from LA." And somebody said, "Speckman, you got to have a great grades to go to Stanford. You're not going to Stanford." So I went to Menlo. And it was a junior college at the time. Coach Solari took a chance on a guy with no hands. I played linebacker there. And it was a great experience. And they helped me pack my parachute. And I appreciate that. It's the only closest I ever got to Stanford's field is I jumped the fence and ran the stairs. And that was about as close as I ever got to the field. And I'm probably most famous in college football. I played linebacker, but I'm probably my most famous thing I ever did in college football is I got called for illegal use of hands in a game. And that made the national newspapers. So, you think the refs are bad now. They were terrible then. And when I first started coaching, I met a guy named Roger Sugimoto. And he taught me this play called the fly sweep. He said, "It's a great play." And he helped me pack my parachute because as a football coach, the only thing I've really done that's been unique is I've developed the fly offense. And it's something that's served me well for over 30 years. But if I hadn't met Roger and he hadn't packed my parachute, this probably wouldn't have happened. So I'm thankful, as I'm sure all the inductees are thankful, for the people that helped pack our parachute. But I also think that for athletes and for people, for everybody, it's not just all the people that helped you. I think we have to do it ourselves. Ultimately, it's our journey. Ultimately, it's us making decisions about what has to happen. It's us going to practice. It's us paying the price. And one of the things that my parents taught me was I was never going to be treated any differently. I was born without hands. I was born with 9 toes. I was born cross-eyed. I was born with a hernia. I was not the model. I was never going to be a Gerber baby. And to my parents' credit, my dad was a janitor. My mom, again, high school graduate. They just said, "Hey, we're going to treat him like everyone else." And they did a great job. And if it was time to go out and do chores, I had to go do the chores. And if my brother was playing Pop Warner football, I was going to go play Pop Warner football. And they had no idea how I was going to do it. And I'm not sure they always made the best choices. They bought me a bike with handbrakes. I don't think that was a good move, especially in Belmont. You know how the hills are there. But You know, one of the things I learned early was how to figure it out. Figure it out. You know, I would stand and listen to our coaches, and they would talk about how to catch a football. If you want to catch a football, you got to make a diamond with your fingers. And I'd be listening going, that's not helping. The ball's low, you put your pinkies together. And I go, again, not really helping, coach. But you know, they gave me the freedom to figure it out. And I figured out my own way to catch a football, my own way to throw a football, my own way to tackle. You know, I was never good at grab and clock, but I did other things that were very, very good. And they allowed me to figure it out. And sports is a great way to have a lot of people helping you, but ultimately you got to figure out your own deal. You got to figure out how you're going to do it. You got to figure out your own style. You got to figure out your own way. You got to figure out your own workouts. And again, I think all the inductees are going to talk tonight about the people that packed their parachute and how they had to figure out their journey. You know, for me, you know, sports was the great equalizer. Sports was a place where I could go and I could compete. And it didn't matter what anybody else did. It was the game wasn't rigged. You had to go out and prove yourself, and if you're good enough, you're good enough. And I appreciated that. I think the journey has been it's been so interesting. You've met so many neat people, like a Sid Gilman, and plucks some little kid out of the crowd and takes him on the bus and gives him a football he can destroy. You know, you get coaches that gave you a chance, and you get colleges, places that gave you a chance to get a job and work, and pass on the lessons that you learned about figuring it out. You know, I noticed that the Stanford has tickets for their opening game, and College of San Mateo has tickets for their opening game, and I just got hired in February at Menlo, so I can only assume we're sold out. And but if you can get a ticket, come down and watch the Oaks, and we're going to figure out how to win some games there, and figure out how our guys are going to go through their journey. And some of them are going to be very pedestrian journeys, and they're going to go on and do great things in some other field. And then some of them 10 years from now are going to be being inducted into the Menlo College Hall of Fame, and their journey is going to be unique. And each one of them had to have somebody pack their parachute, and each one of them had to figure it out. You know, I was fitted with hooks when I was 18 months old. I was the third youngest person in the United States to get fitted for hooks. And my mom was told, do not let him go out in public without his hooks. And hooks are kind of like if you're in a wheelchair and you put a broomstick through the spokes, it kind of slows you down. Hooks slowed me down. I hated them. It took me a minute to pick up a jelly bean. I could pick 20 up with my arms. But my parents they were told what to do, and I had to figure it out. Finally, when I was 14 years old, I remember I parked the driver's training car at Carmon on the sidewalk with my hooks. I went home and said, I'm never wearing these again. And the doctor said you had to wear them, and I remember sitting at the University of California, San Francisco, in the orthopedics department, and everybody saying, you gotta wear hooks. And I said, I'm not wearing them. You gotta wear hooks. I said, I'm not wearing them anymore. And I think what I learned that day was it's great to have people pack your parachute, but you know, ultimately, experts aren't always right. And sometimes you gotta follow your own instincts, you gotta follow your own journey. And so tonight, I hope we celebrate the journey of all these people that are being inducted in the Hall of Fame. It's a great journey. They figured it out, but there's been also a lot of people that helped them pack their parachutes. I'm honored to be a member of this Hall of Fame. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate this chance to share this message with you tonight. And so we're going to go ahead and get on with the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I hope all of you got as big a thrill out of hearing him as I do. I mean, that is the most inspirational man, I think, ever. So thank you, Mark. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the man who never really gave up on the Sports Hall of Fame, who actually began the Sports Hall of Fame back in 1989 while he was sports editor for the San Mateo County Times. And it is our pleasure now to work on it with the Event Center. And with that, I'm going to introduce John Horgan.
Thanks, Ed. Love the music. Before we start, San Mateo County lost a terrific person and an outstanding coach from Menlo College earlier this week. Lee Allen died. Fred Bear points out that Lee Allen actually started his local coaching career in wrestling at the College of San Mateo. Then he went on to Skyline College. But Lee Allen was a real pioneer here, particularly in the last decade and a half in women's wrestling. He has daughters who wrestle. And just wanted to have a quick moment of silence for one of the county's outstanding coaches. Thank you. It's always great to be back at the San Mateo County Fair. I only dodged 2 racing pigs on my way in here this evening. Not sure their names, but they were a lot faster than I am now. Our first inductee, probably, if you think about it, he probably came along a little too early in the great panorama of pro football and specialization. That's going to be kind of a theme tonight about how sports has changed a lot. There's a lot more specialization now at an early age. And Chuck Bradley, a youngster growing up in the South County, Menlo Park, Atherton, down in that area, in the 1960s, he played a lot of sports. He played baseball. He was a big kid, big, rangy kid, kind of looking for the right sport. And it took him a while before football became something that he was pretty good at. And at Oregon, when he went to Oregon, he actually went there and played baseball for a little while, and then football became his primary sport. He was drafted, well, eventually in his senior year, he was the captain of the football team, which says something about how he grew, matured, and became a real dominant factor with the Ducks. He probably loves the Ducks now when he watches them play, because, and speaking of that wide open offense that Mark talked about, wow, do they run that? Anyway, he was drafted in the second round in the NFL draft by Miami, but the World Football League was also in operation, so he went over there and played there for a little while. Then he came back to the NFL and played for the Chargers and the Bears. But looking at his career, I've always had the feeling that if he had played now, the coaches in high school and college would have focused on him immediately. He would have been targeted and guided into a certain position in football, and things might have been different. But, you know, as Mark said, we have to find our own way and make our own journey. And here's Chuck Bradley 40 years later. Chuck?
I am truly honored to be here tonight because of a long time ago I had a dream to play professional football, and for some unbelievable chain of events, it happened. I don't know how, but it did. what I'd like to do is recognize several people that were instrumental for my career. And I was really fortunate to have some great coaches. Every single one of my coaches were great teachers. Since this is graduation time in a lot of spots, you know, this is a time where if you have a chance, you know, you can go talk to one of those guys that were influential to you when you were graduating. And it's important that I think you go back and say thanks to those people, because it's a thankless job being a teacher. And sometimes it's a very thankless job of being a coach. I had a guy by the name of Lonnie Hartman, who was my 6th grade coach, my 6th grade teacher, and he was my first football coach. And one of the reasons that I did so well is because he was a fundamentalist. And I always had an edge at the next level every time I played because he taught fundamentals. He taught me several things, and he said, hey, what you guys have to understand, and these things are going to be good and true in business, in sports, and in relationships. And what they are is, what you need to do is, first thing you have to do is be prepared. Just like what the Boy Scouts said, always know your plays. Second thing is, I want you to execute. So when we tell you to do a job, you got to do it. So he was one of those guys that gave me these little pearls of wisdom as I've grown up and have used them every day in my life. Some of these coaches are not only great coaches, but they are great people. These guys were outstanding people. The next guy that I want to talk about is John Robinson. He was my offensive coordinator at Oregon. And he was one of those guys that said, listen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw the ball. If we throw the ball, 2 out of 3 things can happen that are bad. But you know what? We got the tools and we got the personnel that's going to do it. So what I want you to do is, you guys have to believe that we can do it. If you can believe, you can do it. And he was right. He went on to mentor a lot of different guys. Dan Fouts, Norv Turner, who's now down there at head coach at the Chargers in San Diego. So you take, again, these little pearls of wisdom that I've taken with me all along. We had another guy, a guy's name was Len Casanova. He's also part of this Hall of Fame. He was a baseball coach and a football coach right down the road here at Santa Clara College. He went back to play the 1950 Orange Bowl against Paul Bear Bryant. And this little upstart team from Santa Clara beat him. This is the type of guy that is just a wonderful man. And what he says, there's 4 things you have to have in life to be successful. And the 4 components are, they call them the 4 Ds. You have to have desire. You got to have determination. You have to have dedication, and you have to have discipline. And no matter what you do in life, you got to have these 4 things to be successful. And you know, he was right. So those 3 guys were great people that influenced my life, that made a huge impact on my life, and they were great, outstanding people. There's another person that I want to recognize tonight because she's a teacher, and anybody in education has really helped me along the way because she's taught me quite a bit. I'd like to recognize Lowery Taylor. Please stand. Lowery's a master teacher. She taught 20 years over at the Lowery School District, and she taught AP Psych and AP History. Smart girl. And you know, she taught me another little pearl of wisdom not long ago. And I don't think I've heard anything quite so eloquent as this. Not long ago, I was doing a remodel job, and I think I was getting ready to finish up, so I had to do some painting. So I talked to Lori and I said, you know, I'm really thinking about finishing this thing up. So she came over and saw what I had done. I hope all you males out there know that all men are colorblind. Don't ever think about painting anything anywhere unless you get advice from your loved one. Otherwise, it will backfire. So one day she came in and I got a real hard time about painting this thing the wrong color. And she was relentless. It was like Chinese water torture and she wouldn't let it go. So since I didn't consult her, I finally acquiesced and I said, okay, dear, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color. So she finally leaned over and said, and there's the pearl of wisdom, so everybody needs to listen. Dear, why don't you save you and me a lot of time and do it my way. So, with that, since I'm an educator myself, we have to check for understanding. So, I have a question, and this is for all the males out there, and you can lean over and tell your loved one what the answer is. So, you're going to grade yourself, women. If you get the right answer, you need to reward good behavior. So, here's what we're going to be doing. So, it's either A or B. So, I've also heard from my girlfriend what you need to do when you do a test-taking strategy. If you don't know what the answer is, it's always B. So here's the question. The question is, when you're in a relationship, what would you rather be? A, right, or B, happy? Okay, let's get some audience participation. I want everybody to lean over and talk to your loved one right now. 1, 2, 3, and on 4, you're either going to say A, happy, no, A, right, or B, happy. And we're not going to grade you. You'll find out later on tonight if you got the right answer. Thanks very much.
He forgot his plaque. Chuck, you forgot your plaque. You got so carried away with multiple choice. And by the way, it's not just A and B, Chuck. There's also C, confused. Our next inductee is a very interesting person. She's very confident. She's very organized. She's a full-time teacher. She's a coach. And she was also a fascinating and excellent basketball player at Hillsdale and the University of Pacific. Nancy Dingus, as her father will attest, went to a public school. She did not go to a private school. There are a number of private schools who regret that decision. I say that because we're in an area when it comes to women's basketball that is completely dominated by private schools. This has been the case since 1989, 1990. The Central Coast section has had, I believe, 28 state championship teams. 27 are private schools. Nancy stayed at Hillsdale. She could have gone to Notre Dame. She could have gone to Sacred Heart Prep. She could have gone to Menlo, whose, sorry Mark, the high school's new tuition is $34,000. So Nancy's dad saved a pile of money. And Hillsdale reaped the benefit. She became one of the county's all-time great three-point shooters, but she was more than that. She was a facilitator. She made everybody better, everybody on her team, even her coaches. She made her coaches better. No, that's not a criticism. That is not a criticism. Steve was your coach, right? Steve Krieger? Okay. And Hillsdale had a wonderful couple of years with Nancy running the show. She was a coach on the floor. At UOP, she's still the #2 three-point shooting person in the history of UOP basketball. But again, as Jeff Scheller, the athletic director at San Mateo High, will tell you, Nancy is currently the head women's coach at San Mateo High. She has turned around that program. She has made San Mateo High a real factor in the public school milieu. And it's just been impressive to watch her for the last 16, 17 years. Nancy Dingus.
Sorry, I have my sign down here. First, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for honoring me as an inductee with such a successful group of athletes and coaches. Congratulations to all the inductees. I'm kind of going to take it way back to my 5th birthday, and when I was 5, all I wanted was a hoop and red high-top sneakers, which were Converse. A pretty strange request for a kindergartner. I went from wearing cute little dresses to bright red shoes with every outfit. My mom still reminds me that I even slept with those sneakers, along with my brand new basketball I got when I was 5. Since then, I've had the privilege of having wonderful coaches and supporters. Being a part of the first Abbott Middle School championship team under John Bilbao, being a scared little freshman on varsity under Amy Hale, and then winning a PAL championship with Stephen Krieger. I was then able to play at the University of the Pacific, where Bryce Ho trained his daughter, who actually has who's first in three-pointers at UOP, to be successful collegiate players. I never thought I would make an NBA three-pointer until Bryce basically said I had to. So thanks, Bryce, for showing me the goose. Each of you supported and taught me valuable lessons, which enabled my transition from player to coach. First at Burrell Middle School, thanks Mr. Trudeau, and now to San Mateo High School with my BFF. Of all the coaches I have had, there have been 2 that have truly been the most influential. Mom and Dad, I thank you. Mom, for understanding why Dad and I were an hour late to dinner because I had to make those 10 three-pointers in a row at the end of a 3.5-hour dingus hoe workout. You always knew that basketball was important in my life. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to manage my time on and off the court. And Dad, or Pop as I like to say, you challenged me in ways I cannot explain. Trying to beat you in a game of horse in the backyard when I was 6, and finally getting a win at the age of 8. I can't really remember actually when you beat me the last time. And then sitting with you as a 6th grader, setting assist, point, and free throw goals. And then getting 35 points as a 6th grader and not an 8th grader as we discussed. And finally, trying to break your free throw record of 12 in a row, which you will always hold. I had 11 a few times in games, but I always choked on that 12th one. You're welcome, Pop. You've always been by my side, my #1 fan, and my #1 coach. Thank you for teaching me the game of basketball. Mom and Dad, we've shared so many tears and cheers. From a 5-year-old with Converse who saw the backyard hoop more than her room, to the collegiate athlete and now varsity coach. You have been my coaches on the court and in my life. And to everyone here tonight, all these tables, thank you. To my lifelong friends for your continued support, for the 1.5-hour drive to UOP, and also the CCS game this past year. To the San Mateo High School and Stockton communities, I thank you for everything. And to my family and my second families, you have been there every step of the way, cheering at Abbott, Hillsdale, Pacific, and now San Mateo. I truly feel blessed to have all of you in my life. The San Mateo community is very special. I am honored to be a part of this great area, and I thank you for giving a girl with bright red sneakers a chance to live her dreams. Thank you.
Our next inductee can't be here tonight. He lives in East Palo Alto, Charles Lowery. We've only had 5 NBA players in the history of San Mateo County. So boys basketball is not our strongest sport, but we have had some outstanding people like Charles Johnson, Nick Vanos, and others. Charles Lowery is our 5th. He played for Ravenswood High School in the early 1960s when Ravenswood was a Northern California powerhouse under Coach Tom Crane. They had people like Nate Branch, Milky Johnson, Tyler Raybon, and Charles Lowery a year or 2 later. Charles went to the University of Puget Sound. Some of his records are still, some of his career records are still in the books up there. He was drafted by the Seattle Supersonics, and he went on and played with Milwaukee on one of their great teams in the early 70s. And Charles was the backup to Oscar Robertson, one of the all-time Hall of Fame NBA guards. I'm real sorry Charles couldn't be here tonight. It would have been great to see him again, but he couldn't make it. But I just want you to know that he really is one of the legendary basketball players in county history. So let's give Charles a round of applause. And we will get him his plaque. Our next inductee is Katie May. Now, again, it's a new era out there in sports. I'll give you an example, and this is kind of interesting. I think. A year ago, there was an 8th grader at a big public school in San Mateo. This girl is 6'4". This is a tall person. She plays volleyball. And she doesn't play basketball anymore. She only plays volleyball, and she plays all year long. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, she would have played several sports. Not anymore. If you show potential like that, you focus on one sport now, and you play it year round. This girl is now attending Archbishop Mitty High School in San Jose, 35 miles from San Mateo. Back and forth every day. She's on the U.S. Under-16 Olympic development team. But that's the way it is today. Katie May probably, if she was a high school kid today, would have to probably focus on one sport to see her goal of a college scholarship come true. But when she played at Burlingame 20 years ago, she played every sport. She played volleyball, basketball, softball, and she excelled at all of them. But in her senior year, there were no scholarships available at that time for her. But Cal was tipped off that there was a kid at Burlingame, a 5'9" shortstop, who hit with power and had a great arm, and they might want to just take a peek at her. So they sent a scout down to look at her one afternoon in the spring of '95, and sure enough, she went to Cal, and voila, started 4 years at shortstop for the Golden Bears, helped him get into 2 World Series, still has the all-time record for assists, and she didn't even specialize in softball at that time. So today, I have a feeling that Katie May, unfortunately, would have to just go for one sport or the other. But Katie May, come on up.
When I got the letter about the selection, my first thought was, wow, what an honor. And the second thought was, oh no, they're gonna make me talk. What John didn't say about that tip-off was that he was the one that made the call. And it's amazing how one phone call can shape a life. Everyone I know, the education I got, getting the opportunity to play for the best conference in the country, all the contacts I made, my internship, my career now, all stem from that one phone call. And there are other members of the community that were advocates for me throughout my career as well, and that's what makes this community so special. The most special of those people are here tonight. My buddy Megan, who I've known since preschool, was probably more excited about the induction than I was. Just an amazing person to have in your corner. In fact, I don't think the rest of the table would be here without her rallying the troops and spreading the word while I would have remained quiet. My brother's here, who got dragged around to all my tournaments and yet still voluntarily wandered up to Cal games while we were both going to school there. As a younger child, he had to endure comparisons his whole life, and it's pretty great to see how he excelled and succeeded to become his own man in his own career. My parents have made every game everywhere, except maybe half a game in Oregon where my dad got kicked out by the umpire. He contends it wasn't his fault, but it was still, I was standing out in shortstop looking at the stadium behind me, and I see the umpire call timeout, turn around and point to the top and send him out. He says it was the other guy. When I was a kid, my dad would show up at games in a suit, straight from work, watch the game, and have to dash back to work, but he always made an effort to be there, which is amazing. While my mom was the manager of teams, making banners, cutting orange slices, and driving everywhere. My Uncle Jake flew down from Seattle to watch me ramble tonight. He tried to make me wear a dress, didn't work. Jake went to Stanford and is a huge supporter of Stanford athletics to this day, but after I chose Cal, or Cal chose me, I knew he loved me when I got a birthday card saying, "Go Bears" at the end. Jay Wong is the best part about growing up in this real community and why this night is so cool. Jay's our family mechanic, and we've been taking our cars to him my whole life, and his genuine interest in how my brother and I were doing and what our teams were up to, seeking out articles and congratulating us on successes, turned him into a family friend. To a lesser but no less meaningful extent, the same thing happened with our dentist, the guy who cuts our hair, my dad's barber. This community is amazing. And last but not least, my boyfriend Chris, who didn't have to put up with me then, but has to put up with me now. He lets me play some sort of sport just about every day of the week, and even joins me in most of them, in what my friends affectionately call Camp Katie. What's Camp Katie doing tonight? We've got a doubleheader at the Presidio, and that actually is what's happening tomorrow. Thanks for letting me be me. And then so many others. I'll have to write thank you notes tomorrow. Bobby Sox coaches, summer ball coaches, sports writers and editors. And a few are here tonight, actually. I just saw Mr. Lewis, who started me out in 6th grade basketball, was the first guy who brought in conditioning, and we were jumping rope and running suicides, and I was like, finally, someone gets it. And Frank Furbo, who was my high school coach and let a quiet freshman plays varsity softball, just amazing. And then still showed up at Cal games to check me out, and then showed up tonight. Amazing to have a guy that cares that much. The support throughout my career has been overwhelming, and thank you very much.
I remember was the summer of 1991, and Santini's restaurant was still open in Belmont. This is before the unfortunate, I believe it was an attempted murder by the cousin of the owner, and the place went bankrupt. But before that happened, there was an interesting dinner one night in the summer of 1991, and Frank Firpo was there, and he asked if we knew anything about this 8th grader at BIS, Burlingame Intermediate. We said, yes, she's pretty good. And Frank said, do you think she might be a varsity player as a 14-year-old freshman? And one of the coaches said, yeah, probably, you might want to check it out, and the rest is history. It's amazing how good some of these kids are when they're 13 and 14. That 6'4" kid from San Mateo, 14-year-old kid. It's just stunning. Oh, the Aragon High School. You could make an argument that maybe, sort of, the best athlete at Aragon High School right now is a 14-year-old, I think she's like 4'10", 4'11", badminton player. I think she was 24-0 this year, did not lose a set, won the Central Coast section in about 18 minutes, and she's rated number 16 in the United States in the under 16 badminton group, and they're talking about her maybe being on the U.S. Olympic team in 4 years. So that's the kind of stuff that goes on around here, and it's a little bit under the radar, but we really are lucky. Mark Speckman was right. This area is pretty interesting. Now, speaking of demographics for just a moment, it was about 35 years ago. I remember that we started to notice some new, interesting football players showing up at certain high schools in San Mateo County. These were big kids, and they were good. These are Polynesian kids. Polynesia, Fiji Islands, Samoa, Tonga, and so on. And over the years, over the decades, their numbers grew. Their parents were coming here to work. There were some religious reasons as well. Whatever. It was a new group of folks were coming in. And as Buzz Williams and other coaches will tell you, they have had an increasingly dramatic impact on the peninsula. Now, Edwin Mulitalo is not the first, and he's not going to be the last great Polynesian football player from San Mateo County. Some of the last names are, and I just wrote them down, Tui Pelotu. There are all kinds of Tui, there's many Tui Pelotus. There's a lot of them. There's Vaca, Tonga, Tomapeo, Spencer Folau, who played with Edwin with the Ravens. Anyway, Edwin Mulitalo played high school football at Jefferson. He was a big, strong kid. Now he's a big, strong man. Offensive lineman. He wound up at Arizona, I believe. He was drafted. He played, according to my notes, he started in 128 NFL games. Now that's a lot. That means even if he was hurt, he was in there playing. Now, he played on a Super Bowl championship team with Spencer Folau, and they anchored a dominant offensive line. Now, when Edwin played, when Edwin was with the Ravens, he was listed at about 6'3" or 6'4", and was about 340 pounds. And when you see him tonight, you will say to yourself, I fully understand why the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Edwin, come on up.
good friend, Jonathan Ogden, who next year he'll be eligible for the Hall of Fame in North Bend, is that right? South Bend? The bigger Hall of Fame. And I told him, I said, hey, you know what? When you get inducted, then me and you will be the same, because I'm getting inducted today. So, no, I'm excited to be. I'm honored by the Hall of Fame committee for giving me this opportunity to accept this award on a lot of people's behalf, on my family's behalf, on my coach's behalf, and my friends. My father he passed away in, I think, 2003. I owe a lot to him. He worked in San Francisco steel mills for over 27 years, and he's taught me responsibility and that things need to be taken care of, and that's what I took from my father. And, my mother, a sweet woman, beautiful, but if you get on her bad side, it's a tough deal. I took from her that there's a time for everything. There's a time for everything, and I've taken that throughout my life. And also, I'm a coach. I'm a coach now. I coach high school football, and I remember thinking that all I do is coach offensive line. I don't not yet aspire to be a head coach, but I do offensive line. And our head coach, he told us something. He said, he was just talking. He demands a lot from us, and he was talking to us. He goes, Coach, if you're going to measure your success by how many of your players will go on to the NFL and come back, or how many of your players will play Division I and come back, if you're going to measure your success that way, then you probably will fail, because that's probably not going to happen. But if you measure yourself, the way you coach, as changing these young boys into young men, then you can be successful. He said, if you love these boys, then you're going to be a successful coach. I did go to Jefferson High School, and I didn't realize I had great coaches, Coach Alvarado, Woliczko, Pat Lewis. Thank you for not. I know that I had the best coaches. Coach Woliczko was always positive. I carry that today. A saying with the Polynesian people, it sounds better when you speak Samoan, but it kind of sounds like this. It says, when you translate it, it goes, don't eat so fast that you forget who set the table. Don't eat so fast that you forget to set the table. My coaches who went before me, thank you for setting that table. For me, I will do the same. I'll set the table for the next generation. Last but not least, my wife said, don't put her on blast. Don't say anything about her. But my wife, I love her so much, and I'm thankful that she stands behind me in everything I do. When I was playing in the NFL, and they always say behind a good man is a good woman, and sometimes I think I messed up a lot, but she's always been a good woman. And I thank you so much for supporting me in all I do. And to all the nominees or inductees, congratulations. I'm proud to be in this class with you. Honestly, I am proud to be. And let's set this table for the next generation. Thank you very much.
The next inductee is Paul Noce from Sequoia High School. when you look back at Sequoia, it's really an incredible place. Sequoia was founded and opened in the late 19th century. It's the oldest high school in San Mateo County. And if you've been down there to look at it lately, it's a stunning, it's just spectacular. In many ways, it's nicer than a lot of colleges. It's just beautiful. And Paul, very fortunate to go there. Paul's part of a great baseball family in San Mateo County. His dad, John, is really the creator and the sustaining figure in the College of San Mateo program. John is also a member of this particular Hall of Fame. But Paul has made a name for himself on his own. He played some Major League Baseball after playing at Washington State. He was drafted by San Diego, and he played for the Cubs and Cincinnati. But one of the things he has done really well, just like his dad, he's basically a teacher now. He's a coach. He's the head baseball coach at Hillsdale College in Michigan. That's a small college, has a great reputation. Paul has well over 300 wins there. And he has carved out a niche that a lot of us have to envy. I'm sure his dad is very pleased. His legacy, the family legacy in San Mateo County, goes back decades. When you talk about baseball in San Mateo County, the name Noce is thought of within the first minute or two. So, Paul, come on up.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the committee, first of all. This is a great honor. And when you live out of state, I've been in Michigan for 25 years, and whenever I come back to the Bay Area, especially Redwood City, my memories are they're fantastic. And today my brother came over from Walnut Creek, and my dad and my wife's with me, and we went downtown Redwood City, which has just changed like crazy when I grew up. And we walked into the Hall of Fame thing at that City Hall there, the museum. And I was like, wow, I'm a part of this. I mean, there's some huge names up there, and it is such an honor to be a part of it. It really is. And now I really know, because I've seen it. So, I mean, I'm so happy to be part of it. I know people have been thanking their coaches and teachers, and I had some great coaches back at Sequoia High School. Ivan Elaine, Bob Anderson, Jerry Clifford, baseball coach, was a great influence. And if I can be half the influence that I think Jerry Clifford as far as integrity, then I've got something good going at Hillsdale College. I think back when I drive through there, I think of Red Morton Rec Center, where I spent countless days from a small boy, either chasing pollywogs in the creek that went through there, or on the soccer fields and the Kiwanis field, and baseball fields, softball fields, a lot of time there in St. Pius, just investing. Athletics always seemed to come pretty easy to me, a little easier than school did. So I really went after it, and you know, people that push and motivate you, and so you know, I owe a lot to those figures that challenged me, because I always felt like I wasn't as good as the next kid, and that motivated me because I had a huge heart, and it just really motivated me to get after it. And I think whatever success I had with 12 years, 13 seasons of professional baseball, and in the coaching realm, has a lot to do with being motivated by certain situations and certain people. I'd like to thank my brothers. I have 4 brothers, And you know, we all got after it. I mean, we are extremely competitive. It doesn't matter what we're doing. There's going to be a fight. There's, you know, you get after it. So I go to my brothers for picking on me, my older brothers, I guess, because they toughened me up. And I thank Mike, my oldest brother, for being here, and what a role model he is. He's a great leader and educator. I'd like to thank my dad, who never pushed me, but he always taught me. And I wanted to learn. I wanted to play baseball. It's what I wanted to do. And without being shoved into it and stuff, but being around his teams at College of San Mateo and hanging on out there, and in Rosemary Lane, where I grew up in Redwood City, out in the street, you know, taking ground balls, and he used to fungo fly balls. It seemed like they were a mile high. I'm sure they're only about 60, 70 feet high, but as a little kid, them things were a mile high, and catching them. And fungoing, you know, and ground balls on the asphalt, and kind of prepared me for some of the minor league fields that I played on, I think. But I want to thank my dad, and it's such an honor to be a part of this Hall of Fame with my father. I think that's really, really special. And my mom, who's a great influence in my life, was always encouraging and did all the laboring, the heavy work, getting you from here to there and stuff. But most of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Diane, who has just been being a coach, and a lot of you know, you got to have support. And my wife always has my back. And she was with me for 6 years, I believe, in professional baseball, traveling around the country and having to pack up and do all this kind of stuff. And thank you, Diane. I love you. Thank you. I appreciate this night. This is great.
When Mark Speckman was talking about his early career, he mentioned a referee who made a bad call. I winced a bit because one of our inductees is a referee. Fortunately, he's a basketball referee, not football. Mark Reischling is a product of the 1960s in San Mateo. He played basketball at Hillsdale for a legendary coach, Homer Zugelder, who passed away several years ago. I have a feeling Mark will talk a little bit about Homer and his influence on him. But Mark was an outstanding basketball player. He played at Chico State later, but where he really established himself after coaching, yeah, he coached for a while too, was refereeing. And he refereed for 42 years. And he wound up as one of the Far West's outstanding college basketball referees. He worked more than 1,800 basketball games, including 19 NC2A Division I tournament championship games, 23 Division I tournament games, and the NC2A Final Four. One of the things about him is, at least I think, was his drive and determination to be the best he could possibly be at a craft that is not fully appreciated. If you watch college basketball today, it is extremely hard to officiate those games. These are big, strong, fast people. And the coaches go ballistic, the sports writers, the fans, the television people, the referees. The best referees are the ones you never pay attention to. And that's a compliment. And Mark Reischling managed to keep himself at least somewhat in the background because he didn't take the game away from the players. And yet, he maintained control, fairness, and objectivity. On the road, at home, it didn't matter. So I think we need to appreciate referees, umpires, the people who make the game possible. Without them, we don't have any games. We don't have any matches. So Mark Reischling, I guess what we'd really like to say is thank you for 42 years of officiating service.
I'm absolutely humbled to hear those words, John. Thank you so much. I am honored to be here tonight. I'm so happy with my family and friends to share this evening. I'd like to congratulate the other inductees on all of the work that they put in over the years. And I'm going to try and be lighter than my wife wants me to be. She's always encouraging me to tell stories and lighten it up. But I get sentimental and I get very sincere when this kind of stuff happens. So I'm a San Mateo kid. I grew up the street on 29th Avenue. I got my hair cut at Wayne's Barbershop on 25th. I played hoops at Meadow Heights, Bearsford Park, Abbott Junior High, Hillsdale High School, College of San Mateo, and then I went to Chico State. So I am very, very proud tonight to be here and represent San Mateo. I was a 35-year high school teacher. My wife is a 34-year elementary teacher. Our table has 6 teachers out of 8 people at that table. With close to 150 years of experience. It's incredible. My soulmate of 43 years, Terry, is here with me tonight, and she is a George Hall girl. Abbott Junior High, Hillsdale High, College of San Mateo, and Chico State. We've been together for 43 years. Whenever she wants to go, and if you know what I mean, go, she like, because she's Italian, okay? When she goes, I always say, hey, now, wait a minute, don't get your George Hall on me now, slow it down. I'm blessed to have our son Kyle and Christine, his wife Christine, here with us, our son Matthew, a teammate Brad O'Neill, who played with me in those days, my sister and her husband, Olivia and Michael, with me, plus so many dear friends of my past at Hillsdale High School that I'll mention in a moment. My early memories of San Mateo were when I was a 4th grader at Meadow Heights. I'd go to the playground after school was over, and I'd look up, because my teacher at that time, my PE teacher, was a guy named Stan Bingham. And Stan used to post a basketball workout. I was 9 years old. The ball was huge, the basket was high, but man, I had a workout, I'd dribble drive, I'd shoot, I'd pass, I'd do all kind of things. Because of that, you know, I was able to fall in love with the game, and then I got a chance to go to Hillsdale High School and play for 2 great coaches, Homer Zagelder and Chuck Barreco, here tonight. I was truly blessed to play with great players and have coaches like Chuck and Homer, because they had great basketball IQ, character, and integrity. We won some championships. Matter of fact, Marcel Hitu and I played together in a championship team about almost 50 years ago. Marcel was my neighbor. He and his brother Ray and I would play in their backyard. It would be tag team Celtics versus Lakers to the dying day, and the lights went out. It was great. But I was influenced by people like Ward Stanley and Steve Morger and Frank Skoglund and Pete Caccone, Al Paparo, and Gil Mesa, who eventually ended up in Petaluma, where I taught for 35 years. He opened the boys club in Petaluma. I began my officiating career in 1968 after I finished playing for Chico. My wife, Terry, asked me to get a job because we were struggling grad students. She actually told me to get a job. She said, hey, big boy, you know, show's over, lights are off, game's over, name's no longer on the scoreboard, get a job. I was really in trouble because I had no skills. I said, I'm going to coach, I'm going to teach, I'm going to get my credential. I'm working at a jewelry store, get a job. So a buddy of mine said, hey, Reich, do you want to do some rec ball games? It's pretty easy money. It's like $5 a game, 3 games a night, 3 nights a week, $45. Yes, that's a job. I could give it to the foundation. My life will be made. So that's how I got started. I was helped, though, by a guy like John Noce, who refereed games when I played for Chuck and Homer, and a guy named Bill Kaler. Those guys were refereeing at the time from the high school level to the JC level and up to the Far Western Conference D2 level. And I looked at them and I said, you know what? They have a great feel for the game. I learned the game because of Chuck and Homer. But I started looking toward the officiating side. I was coaching at the time at Ridley High School in Petaluma, but at the same time I had this parallel track going for officiating. I really, really dug it. There's an aspect about it that is a way to compete within the game, and there's a game within the game. And you have to relate to people, you have to be able to be strong when you need to, and back out of the limelight if you can. And when unfortunately things blow up in your face, you gotta handle adversity. Anyway, doing that seemed like fun, so I kept at it. Well, last year ended a 42-year run, and it included a lot of nights away from home. And Kyle and Matt and Terry, I apologize for the nights on the road, but I did my best. Both boys went to college. Kyle went to Chico State like Terry and I, and Matt couldn't get into Chico, so he had to go to UCLA. I'd like to thank Brad and Marcel. Pete Pontac, where's Pete? Pete Pontac from Skyline was a competitor. He played at Cap, Hall of Fame member. Dave Thomas, a former coach with me at Petaluma. Ed DeRitter, who flew up from Los Angeles, a referee friend. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my godfather in officiating, and you know who this is. It's Frank McIntyre, who got me started in the Pac-10 in 1977. From those first days from shooting hoops at Meadow Heights and Beresford Park, playing for Homer and Chuck at Hillsdale, Jack Avina, oh my God, Jack Avina in the day, Fire and Brimstone at CSM, and then Doc Scott at Chico State. To officiate on college courts all over America in the last 5 decades, I have had a wonderful ride. From a game I learned right here in San Mateo, my wife and I have traveled all over the world. I'd like to give very special thanks, though, tonight to Judy and Josie Gelder and Bucky Kaler for your help in getting me involved in this great honor this evening. And tonight, I'd like to ask you all to help me wish my wife, the absolute soulmate of mine for 43 years, a happy birthday to my own Sequoia Cheryl Kelly. Stand up, please stand up. Come on. I can't thank you enough. It's a great honor. I am overwhelmed and humbled to be a part of the Hall of Fame. And just like Paul, who said, you know what, I'm going to be a member of a group that has those guys in it. Pretty cool, Paul. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Every fall when the when the Hall of Fame committee meets, we sit down and we have this huge file of potential inductees. Every year it seems to get bigger because there are more and more young people who excel, and there are more and more coaches as well. But we discovered that long ago, at the end of the 19th century, there was a person that everyone had completely forgotten about. This fellow, his name was Warren Smith. He went to a defunct school in Burlingame called the Hoyt School. No one had even heard of it. We accidentally found out about it on Google. The internet does have its pluses. This young man, in 1899, I believe, let me check my notes. No, 1896, was the California State Athlete of the Year in football and track and field. So we deduced that he must have been a man among boys back at the turn of the previous century. Well, he went to Cal. He scored he was part of their first 2 victories over Stanford in the big game. He lettered in 3 sports. He wound up being the head football coach at the University of Oregon. This guy's resume was incredible. And nobody knew a whole lot about him, but there it was. And fortunately, he was in Cal's Athletic Hall of Fame. So we contacted Cal and got some more information on him. And it turned out that Warren Locomotive Smith, that was his nickname, Locomotive. So he must have been a bulldozer of a human being. And we figured, you know, we're only 120 years late, but we got to do it. And needless to say, he's not going to be here tonight. How about a quick round of applause for Locomotive Smith? Thank you. And now, back to the living. Erica Reynolds Woliczko from Cappuccino and UOP. Erica was a catcher, as I recall, at Cappuccino. She played on 4. She was the leader. She was the linchpin. She was the glue, power hitter, powerful arm, big, strong figure out there. Cappuccino won, I think it was 3 or 4 Central Coast Section championships with her on that team. And her coach, Kyle Brumbaugh, told us that she was so feared as a power hitter that she was actually walked purposely with the bases loaded, a la Barry Bonds. Now that's the ultimate compliment. That's the ultimate compliment. Oh, and then she emailed us. She lives now up in the Northwest. Is it Montana or Idaho? I'm not sure which. But she emailed us and told us that when she went to UOP, her first at bat she homered, and then years later, her last at bat she homered. So she had a 4-year impact in Stockton, and let's meet her now. Erica Reynolds Woliczko.
Thank you. This is such an honor to be here. It's incredible to be in the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame with such great athletes. I would like to say congratulations to all the inductees tonight. To think it all started when my sister brought home a trophy, At that moment, I was determined to win a trophy too, which started my sports career, and not only did I win a few trophies, but I learned I was good at something. I struggled with school early on from dyslexia, but sports were fun. And sports taught me that drive and hard work can turn into success. And that work ethic carried over into my education and all aspects of my life. So I have to say thank you to my sister for bringing home that trophy. I also wanted to thank a few more people. Most importantly, I want to thank my parents, Pat and Michaela, who have always pushed me to be my best and have given me the love and support to make me the person I am today. I want to thank some of my coaches who mentored and gave me the tools to thrive as an athlete, as well as a person. Kyle Brumbaugh, my high school coach, Ron Paris and Bob Rakepala, my travel ball coaches, Brian Colsey, my college coach, and again, my father, who has coached me throughout my life. Lastly, I want to thank my husband, Aaron, my teammate in life, for inspiring me every day, and my daughter, McKenna. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thanks for this honor.
Our last inductee is Jim Harbaugh, and he can't be here because he's coaching. Gee, what a surprise. I think Frank Purpo might remember this. Palo Alto High School was playing in Frank's tournament, was it 1979 or 1980? 1981, 30 years ago, Palo Alto High came to Burlingame High School to play basketball in the annual Lions Club Invitational. Palo Alto comes out to take warm-ups, and out there's this intense, there's this about 6'3", 6'4" kid, and he's got this look. Just taking layups. He's got this look. I'm sitting way up in the top row, you know, half focused, half not. But I'm looking at this guy, I'm going, who is that? And he looked a little bit manic almost, taking warm-ups. He's really focused. Then the game started, and he was really focused. I mean, you talk about tough, physical defense. I mean, he wasn't a gifted basketball player per se, but holy cow, did he compete. Just so physical. It was Jim Harbaugh. He was like 16 or 17. And of course, the rest of the story, you all know the rest of the story. He was the Palo Alto quarterback, then he went to Michigan, then he started to coach, his dad's a coach, his brother's a coach. We all know the story. But I think the thing that really struck all of us that night, who had never seen him before, he was just 16 or 17, was holy cow. He just refused to lose. He just threw his body around. It was amazing. Just a tough, physical kid. And it doesn't look like a whole lot has changed. He coaches the same way. It's great to watch him coach. He just seems to have a certain joy about it. It's almost like he's playing, still playing. The way he's so animated on the sidelines, and he's obviously brilliant. Oh, and his staff is also brilliant. So he does such a great job of surrounding himself with outstanding people, and then leading the team, leading his coaches. I mean, he's really a great example of what determination, intelligence, and drive can do. I'm really sorry he's not here tonight, so is Ann, because we wanted to hear from him. We wanted to hear some words of wisdom, but he can't be here, obviously, he's coaching. So Jim Harbaugh, a worthy member, he's our last inductee tonight. I wanted to thank all of you for coming. This has been a great crowd. Ann has some more things she'd like to say, but thank you all, and thanks to the people who served the dinner. It was very nice. Tom Martinez, who passed away earlier this year, always said that one of the mistakes that a lot of us make, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, is we forget to say thank you. And he was right. And Tom, by the way, is greatly missed. Ann?
Let's give all of the inductees one giant round of applause. Congratulations.